another episode of the Roving Height podcast. My name is Emeka and I am your book obsessed host. Today I spoke with Chioma Okereke, the author of Water Baby, one of Masobe's latest offering, and we talked about her characters, her main character who you come to know as Baby in the book, and her writing process, how the story came to her, what inspired her to write about Makoko, and a lot of other interesting things. So yeah, stick around, listen and enjoy, and don't forget to give us feedback in the feedback section. You can also check the description of this episode to see the link to get Water Baby from our website and to also support the foundation that Choma started to help people in Makoko. Okay, enjoy the episode. Hello. It's so nice to have you here today, Choma.
Thank
Before we
you.
get started, I'm going to just tell our audience a little bit about you.
Okay.
So, Chioma Okereke is a poet, short story writer, and a novelist. She has been shortlisted for the Commonwealth Prize, and her debut novel. And this is just a side. I actually thought this was your debut, but when I
Okay.
had to research and I found out you have another novel, Bitter Leaf.
Yes.
I'm going to try as much as possible to get my hands on it as well. So her debut novel, Bitter Leaf, was published by Virago. I don't know if I'm getting the name right, but yeah. She was born in Nigeria, grew up in London, moved around a lot when she was young, and her latest novel, Water Baby, published in Nigeria by Masobe Books, and in in the West by I don't know how to get this, but Choma, maybe you can tell us about that. But
Okay.
Water Baby, it's set in Makoko. It's set in Makoko and follows the story of Baby, her coming of age story as she navigates life, as someone that was born in the biggest slum in Africa. So it's so nice to have you here, Choma. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. Okay.
So what can you tell me? I have so many questions about Water Baby. I think my first question is
Mm.
about the research. So when did the story first come to you that you're like, okay, this is a story I want to tell? Yeah, let's start from there.
I've repeated the origin story maybe quite a few times, but it was during the pandemic and we were watching a lot of food shows. So YouTube, the algorithm was just throwing up all sorts of food content. And one evening, I was watching the best ever food review program. But this episode took place in Makoko, and so I just put it on. I didn't really think anything about it, and we were having dinner, and it literally blew my mind because it's one
Mm.
of those things when you're traveling across the bridge and you kind of see uh,
Yeah.
shack spreading out above you, but it's another thing to venture inside. So I'd never gone in there, and I watched this chef sort of bouncing around from canoe to canoe and talking to people and looking for food. And I was just mesmerized. I was one mesmerized by the place because it's so different to the Lagos that I know.
Mm-hmm.
And I was confronted with my own ignorance as well, and the fact that look at this man was just going around and navigating, like a proper tourist, and I had never even thought to do that. So we just, kept on watching the show, but even honestly, so it's so atmospheric anyway. So what I was looking at and looking at the waterways and seeing how life was, carried out on the canoes with all the, with food and with bras and with whatever, lumber,
Yeah.
these kind of things, my mind was just popping. And then in one segment of the show or something, my brain just literally wandered and Baby just crept in there. So I got this flash of Baby in a canoe, and
Mm-hmm.
just saw her frame, saw everything like this and whatever it was. And I said to my partner, I bet you if I wrote about a girl from here, publishers would want this despite the fact that I've never set foot in the settlement.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and he said, "Oh, okay, I dare you to write it." So that's really what happened. So it started off almost like a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to do research about Makoko, and it was just, like I say, it just became more and more fascinating to me that I had not had really any awareness of this at all. And I started to try and look for pathways to, to find her voice, to actually really hear her voice. I knew what she looked like, but I did not have her story. And so I needed to do, I think, a lot of research about the community she grew up in and where she came from, and really understand the complexities and challenges of life there before, I could really take a start.
Mm.
Mm.
Wow. So first thing I want to say is that I I tend to find out when people like research, when people sort of like dump research in books, but it
Yeah,
didn't feel that way when I read Water Baby. It
yeah.
felt like I was reading something that was written by someone that was from Makoko,
Mm.
creating fiction, but there were so many interesting details, and I was like, "Ah, I have to talk to you. I have to, I have to, I have to ask how the research was." But
Yeah.
I'm sure you visited Makoko during the research time, yeah.
I actually did it afterwards. So I had already written my first draft when I visited, but
Mm-hmm.
it helped add, shape and color. And is really important to go there. And actually, it's one thing to imagine on the internet, but you need
Mm-hmm.
to see things with your own eyes and smell and touch and really have an understanding of even what it feels like to be in a canoe, all those things. So yes, I've
Yeah.
been to Makoko a few times since the book was published, but it was largely my imagination. But again, you do the research not necessarily to put it in the novel. You do the research so that you can write the book. So
Yes.
I think
Yes.
sometimes people try to overcompensate and show you how much research they've done.
They did, yeah.
It was less about that, but actually, once I was coming from a place where, okay, I felt like, okay, I could put those words on the paper. I'd done enough research to feel reassured that what I was saying sounded legitimate. That was,
Mhm.
fine, but it really is fiction. It's not, it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I want you to tell me about the project that you also created now that is funding
Yeah.
creating, yeah.
So effectively, it was actually after my first visit. So I had gone to make sure that really I had written something that was accurate and authentic. It was one thing to write something and then and then put it out, and then someone says this does not feel anything like it's from the place. So that was why I made my first visit. But I really wanted to see lots of things on water, like a healthcare clinic. I wanted to see schools and all those kind of things. So we did a tour in my first thing, and then we went to a school, and I had gone with the help of my tour guide. I'd also taken a collection of books for the school kids, so we didn't know who we were going to be meeting. So we, took a generous collection of books for the kids, and we got out at just one school, and about 250 kids just rushed out, and
Wow.
it was so overwhelming. And they were so welcoming, they were so happy. They were grabbing for books. They were so desirous to learn, and it just broke my heart when you saw the size of the schoolroom where literally 8 classes would come every day, and you
Mm.
see the limits of their conditions, but they're still learning. The teachers, they're still teaching all those things. And I just thought there has to be something that one can do. I can't just finish here, go in the canoe, you know what I mean, and then go and eat
Yeah.
soup in a restaurant and say my work is done. So I thought there has to be a way of spreading more awareness, or shedding more light on the community, and trying to raise responsibly for them. And obviously, I don't live in Nigeria, and it's
Mm.
difficult to raise money for organizations within Nigeria. So I had to create something myself.
Mm-hmm.
So exactly, so which is registered with the UK Charities Commission. So I set up a charitable organization called Makoko Pearls, and the idea is to, work with some key organizations that are already doing some great work within Makoko to better inhabit to better help the life of its inhabitants, and also to empower them to be able to help themselves. So that's what we're trying to do. And then hopefully then we can then just, turn the website around to actually showing some really positive, good news stories, much like Baby's story herself.
Yes, yes, yes.
I would like to do.
That's excellent. So I'm going to add the link to
Yes.
Makoko Pearls in the
Yeah.
description of this episode so that
And I need
because
lots
we
of
need.
people to follow Makoko Pearls on Instagram as well, because we created the account recently. But yes, so I need that to start becoming
Mm.
as well.
Okay, that's nice. So coming back to the book, I'm someone that is drawn or attracted to emotional, how emotions are described or portrayed in books. And one of the ones that stuck out to me the most was the relationship between Charlie Boy and Baby. Charlie Boy was so
That's,
present.
yes, you have to avoid spoilers though. But yes,
Yes,
yeah,
yes, yes. I'm trying. Yeah.
okay,
So Charlie Boy was so present and absent,
yeah,
written like with like this refreshing balance of someone who is here when
yeah,
he's here and someone
yeah.
who is not here when he's not. So can you tell me about, like, I want to know how you thought about incorporating him in that sense, writing him in the way that you did?
It's very difficult to speak about that without without giving anything away myself. But
Mm,
I think once I can't explain this any way other than anybody who writes understands. Sometimes things happen organically, and
mm-hmm,
I most knew is instinctively once I discovered the start of Baby's voice, which was literally a what now, because I would go to my computer and I wouldn't be able to write, and I think what now, what now, how do I start? And that's not usually how I start my books. I wouldn't struggle in this whole thing. And it
mm,
took a while, and I would always go back and do more research. And I was like, maybe I don't know enough about community. Maybe I need to read some more stuff. And it took me a little bit of time to actually realize that that what now wasn't actually me struggling. That what now was Baby's voice. And
okay.
I understood in it. And so, the book kind of really does open up with her sort of, doing her usual taxi run and looking around at the settlement and looking across at the mainland and sort of saying, what now? Like lots of us, dream of another place type thing. Um,
Yeah.
and so but immediately I had her what now, I actually her voice just came to me, and her whole family construct in my head came to me. So I always knew a Charlie Boy story, put it that way. So I always knew what would happen with Charlie. It was very much organic, and then
Okay.
that became the challenge of capturing that effectively, so that there is a this great poignant moment for the reader. Then they have to go back and sort of review certain things to see if they notice this thing going on in real time at the beginning.
Mm,
But yeah, so that's really it. And I kind of, he's also there to balance Baby's trajectory, because obviously, women and boys and girls grow up very differently within the community as well. So it was important to um
mm.
have that storyline sort of woven through the novel as well. But yeah, I think that's it. But the best way I can describe it without giving anything away, there's no way to answer it without answering.
No, 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 it's actually good because when I read your bio, it made sense to me that you're a poet because that part of the book was so poetic. It was so it
Yeah.
was it was it was like dancing, and it was so refreshing to to read it, like to sort of like take a break from baby story,
Yeah.
explore, do this internal
Yeah.
exchange, all of that, and then come back to the book. So
Yeah.
I just enjoyed that bit very much. So yeah, this book, there's something I was telling I was talking to my friend recently, and I was telling him about how parents,
Yeah.
for like, yeah, our parents sort of like the hand that was dealt to them was very
Yeah.
different
Yes, for sure.
from what we have now. And it's so crazy to think about a time, maybe in their time, when internet was not a thing.
Yeah.
So even access to a lot of information, something we take for granted
Honestly.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, something we take for granted now was not a thing. And I'm saying this because of Baby's father.
Yeah.
He's someone I personally understand. And the reason is that I think it is I think it's easy for people to hate fathers that say, "Oh, you must
Yeah.
be a doctor, you must marry." But what they fail to understand is that that is trauma response in a way. This
Completely
is
a response, it is.
yes.
It's
This
also,
this is
go
yeah,
on.
go on, go on.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. This is someone that has probably seen and witnessed a lot of loss, a lot
Yes.
of dreams die, passion, good, like things. He has seen life basically. And then he's just like, okay, this is the safest option. I want the best thing for you. I don't
Exactly.
want you. Yeah.
The safest
So,
option is the definition of success within the confines of, what they have been able to do in their own generation as well, and this and that. So yeah, and it's definitely a trauma response, and so don't rock the boat, don't bring attention, don't do any of those things, stay in the bubble.
mhm,
And so yeah, I think it's something that keenly resonates with I think a lot of Africans in general, and not just,
yeah.
Africans, but yeah, because we sometimes experience that same thing in our own families, and it's not, and as understanding it's not coming from a place of just trying to reprimand or whatever it is. It really is it is a trauma response, as you say.
Yeah, it is. Because I was very intrigued by him in the beginning, where
Yeah.
especially during baby's birth and the entire drama that surrounded that. So, but as I was reading, I was like, why is he like this? He's supposed to be different, modern. And then it made sense to me that in a real life situation, he would not be modern. He would be exactly as he is. So his character just fascinated me, and I just wanted to talk to you about that. If there's something interesting about crafting him, or when he came to you, something interesting about that sort of like give you the big picture.
I think you see, as much as you see, hopefully see baby's arc, and progress throughout the book, you also see, her father's evolution and you see his change exactly. So you see him in his younger years where baby is born, and then you experience him throughout the novel, as baby, tries to, as we say, do the drone mapping and do these other bits and bobs. And you see her father has been greatly changed by circumstances and the loss of his wife as well, and all those kind of things. And and when opportunities do come for baby, we also see her father go through certain things as
Mm.
he watches his daughter navigate global attention. So yeah, I think it was an interesting thing to try and capture and make him not just 2D and just make him the draconian African father, you know what I mean, but
Yeah.
also try and show a real flesh and blood man who is also exactly as you say a product of his time, is also
Hmm.
a husband who has lost his wife and has children to look after, all those complexities.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's really nice. And most times I usually read grief, like maybe in an African setting, maybe the father dies and then the mom
yeah,
has to. So it's very interesting and refreshing seeing him deal with grief in
yeah,
a way that is not very common
yeah,
for fathers to do. So
yeah.
yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that. So in the book, you separated the chapters by earthly elements. So can you
Yeah.
tell me about that, please? I want to know.
Again, I don't even know how that happened. I think that was an organic thing. I think because water is such a big and pivotal part of the book, uh,
Mm,
and it kind of made sense actually as you're writing and you're crafting, and sometimes you get to what feels like an end of a chapter, and sometimes you feel like what gets to an end of a segment. And then I realized
okay.
after the segment that was what had happened because it opens up in Makoko, opens up on the water. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so once I had arrived at the end of a natural segment, it suddenly came to me to actually, as the story was also crystallizing, to break it up in the form of the elements. And so we also see that that also
Yeah.
yeah.
No, 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 that's true. That's true, actually, because I liked it, and it sort of like gave me a sense of what's coming
Yes,
next.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So when I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, this is cute.
yeah.
But I think the strongest theme, maybe for me in this book is community.
Yeah,
And I say this in also the way you showed Makoko as this community of people
yeah.
that are floating in the lagoon, on the lagoon, and how they are, like, how they sort of like have this protection of themselves. I don't know how to describe it, but inside, I didn't even know there were like a lot of different
Yes,
sections of
exactly. And bits and bobs. Yeah,
yeah,
they're everyone. Yeah.
yeah. So that sense of community is showed in that way that all of them are here for themselves. But I also see it in baby's life personally. We have friends,
Yeah.
and how sometimes one has to call meeting for everybody to attend. So,
Yeah.
so what can you tell me about community that sort of like inspired you or made you pursue it in that micro and macro way? Because it's like the small and the big.
I'm not even sure. I mean, I think it's just the research that I did, and you see how everybody bands together to make life work. I think
Mm,
it's really important to demonstrate that throughout the novel. And I think that there is no way you can make a life work by yourself. And there's no way a 19-year-old could navigate life by herself. So I think we needed to see her as a little small cog. In the ecosystem, but also just that's representative of life as well. So
mm,
I think I also wanted to create a situation where, by I understood that for Makoko would be unfamiliar to many people, myself included. It was before that, but the themes
mm,
of the book, as you say, are very universal.
yeah.
And community equally, it was an equally important one. And so Baby has her circle, she has her stronghold, but equally, even amongst those 19-year-olds, they're going through very common issues that any 19-year-old would go out, whether it's Baby in Makoko, Baby in Lekki, or Baby in the UK,
Hmm.
still
Yeah.
having those same things. So I think Yeah, but I think that, she's forged in that fire, and it's a very strong sense of place and identity. And so, I think it was important equally, to build that sense of community, because then, when she does leave the lagoon for different opportunities, so you also see that contrast.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And it was very nice to see that she still had that community even when she left. That was the part that made me feel good. It's just like I was just kicking my legs and I was reading it. I was like, yeah, yeah, because it's not all the time
Yeah.
that we see a lot of happy moments in book.
Yeah.
It's like they're always glossed over and we have to focus on so it
But
was
this is the other thing as well, is I didn't want to write the same. I feel like there are a lot of books that are very similar, and we've seen this story and we've heard the story. It was important to not write some sort of miserable book because we
yeah.
believe that the circumstances where she lives are miserable. They aren't. Her home. Everybody that lives there, that is their home. Those are the circumstances they live with, and they've learned how to navigate them. And it's not for us to sit there externally and judge them and say, I'd be miserable if I lived like this. So it was really important for me to tell a joyful story. And if Nigerians, there's one thing they're always doing is laughing. You find, so that was a thing. So for me, I just wanted to, we can have love stories, we can have good stories, we can have this. We don't necessarily have to focus on those aspects of life, which are very real, but they
Hmm.
don't have to be the pain point doesn't have to be the main point of the book. So,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah, and that's something I noticed with Baby. Baby was so proud of where she came from.
yeah,
Like, I was like, this is perfect. This is just wonderful. She was very proud. Any small thing she would say, home. She's always thinking about her home. She's always thinking about her family, her people. It was very good to see. So anyway, from the start, I mean, this is actually quite a huge book. From
right.
the from the start, the first draft to the final draft, like how long did it take, like for you to?
It was actually quite quick in that
Hmm.
I started writing in a very different way. So I'd set it as a challenge, like equally within the pandemic. So it wasn't something I was crafting on for a long time. So I think I probably had my first draft within 3 or 4 months.
Hmm.
And then I visited Makoko, and then you just completely then you polish and you polish, and then obviously pre-publication you go
Yeah.
many changes as well. What is a finished book for me isn't necessarily a finished book for your publishers, and and people have different ideas, which also makes it stronger. And then also we had some sensitivity readers, read the book and make sure, even check the pigeon and all those kind of things, because again, it's one of those things where I wanted to use that sort of language to allow the reader to travel, but not so much that it alienates, because then people don't understand what's going on. I mean, no two people speak
Hmm.
the same, but I didn't want to make it so heavy that no one would understand those kind of
Hmm.
things. So just to make sure that it's an authentic experience for anybody coming to the book. So yeah, it takes a little bit of time, but in terms of my first draft, that was very quick.
Okay, that's nice. That's nice. So the Switzerland trip, I don't know if we're allowed to talk about it.
I think we can
Yeah,
say
right, right. Yeah, I think we can talk about it. So there's this very interesting parallel between Baby coming from Makoko
I know.
and and like climate
Yeah,
change and coming to a country that is so neat. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, I did have to think of what is almost the diametric opposite. And it kind of made sense with the things that she's going to Switzerland to do and whatever it is. So it did,
Mm,
yes. But I thought there would have to be this contrast in this story. I mean, as that opportunity comes to really see what life could be,
mm,
with under very, very different hands of fate and everything else, and to for baby to have that vantage point that lots of people in the community would never see, that the other side of what life could possibly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was very interesting. And then there's also the parts where you mentioned I'm trying to remember her name, the young girl that is fighting for climate change.
Oh,
You know
Ngozi.
her. No, not Ngozi.
Oh,
Oh,
Malala. No,
yeah.
Greta.
Mm, yes, 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 yes. Malala
Yeah,
is from
sorry. I was thinking I knew because it's in the same passages or whatever it
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was an interesting parallel as well of how baby can be the pearl of Makoko,
Yes,
doing
exactly.
this same thing for her. But she felt like no, she felt like in everything her community had to come first. Yeah.
It's also one of those things where you see that also, some of her father's, the things he's been whispering in the back of it, has also informed some of her thought process and decisions.
Yes.
So, there's certain things that she's happy with and certain things she's uncomfortable doing.
Mm.
So yeah.
That's true. I noticed it sometimes when she speaks, especially when she traveled. It was as if it was her father that was speaking. I was
Yeah,
like, this is
exactly.
not the baby I know.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that was very, very interesting to,
yeah.
to notice as well. Anyway, most of our listeners are equally writers.
Mhm.
So I try as much as possible to talk about the book and talk about writing itself because yeah, it's always interesting to learn. I
Yes.
don't think there's one way to write or publish a book, but yeah.
Mm.
So, the writing process, how does it work for you? How do you think typically that you write?
We're about to get interrupted here. Someone's just jumped on my desk, so be prepared.
Oh,
That's one
let's.
thing. So yeah, I am a morning writer. If I have any kind of process, I write in the morning because I figure if you wait till the end of the day, you might not write, and so you lose a day.
Okay.
As I say, since the pandemic, I had set myself a slightly different challenge, which was when I wrote my debut. As I could say, I started out as a poet and then tried to transition to prose, and I think that's very evident in Bitter Leaf, my attempt at writing prose. It's very
Mm,
heavy, it's very dense,
okay.
and I've been crafting for 10 years to make my batter much lighter. So it was much lighter in Water Baby. I think it's a much easier read, uh, what I will say. Um, but I had crafted over everything in Bitter Leaf, and I would wait for inspiration to come to me, and if I wasn't feeling it, I wouldn't do it that day, all those kind of things. So my writing
Mm,
was it's much more disciplined now, and actually I do set myself a daily challenge or whatever it is, a set amount of words, because
okay.
what's important for me is just getting to that first draft so there's something I can polish. Um, and so, yes, so I'm much less necessarily bothered by the beauty of my words. It's just really important to meet that daily commitment and write
Mm,
it every single day. And if you make your words, that's great. If you want to go over, that's also great. I try not to really edit while I'm writing that first draft, but again, if I'm over, then I can do that. I can do this kind of.
yeah.
The thing is to not discourage the words from coming.
Mm, yeah.
And so that's kind of what I do, and it makes it much easier to achieve that, whether it's a 90,000 word mark. That's really so that's as much of a process as I have. I don't draft a whole plot line thing. I kind of just only see sort of inches down the road, but I do have some sort of sense of where I'm going. And I think it's one of those things where, because I've written a few novels now, only a couple have been published, but because I have attempted to
Mm,
write more, I do have some, narrative structure or some narrative skill set that I'm working towards, but it's not necessarily something that's physically written on a paper. There's no roadmap for me.
okay, that makes sense.
What I do have are probably like thousands of post-it notes everywhere from just little snatches of ideas, or sometimes bits of dialogue that I know that I will use at some point in the book. Physical description of another character. Those are things that
Yeah.
I record or I keep track of more than I do the structure of a novel.
Okay. That works. So, I don't know. I know some writers tend to say they don't have favorite chapters, but I want to know if you have a favorite chapter of the book. No, a favorite in the sense that it was a chapter that during revision, whenever you read it, you're happy about this particular chapter.
No one has ever asked me that, and I haven't actually thought
Thought
about.
you haven't thought about it, right?
And it's very hard to say that the favorite chapter could be one with also that is also a difficult chapter, but it
Mm.
be that it might be the Charlie Boy chapter just because, but I don't know if I could call it my favorite. Yeah, in that sense. But no, I'd have to really think about that. I'm not entirely sure, but that's what I'm thinking of now because it's also one of the things that clings in my mind is that
Mm.
I don't know. What's your favorite chapter?
I think for me, My favorite chapter was when the beginning, when baby was born.
Yes.
And I say this because it's very difficult for me to get into books.
Yeah.
So the beginning, and that thing you said about transitioning from poetry to prose,
Yeah.
it's excellently done in this book because it wasn't dense, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I can understand that the writer I
Yeah.
can, there's this sense that I got that, this is someone that knows what they're
Yeah.
doing kind of thing. So in that beginning, starting off with baby's birth and how she sort of like told it,
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, this is wonderful. This is just excellent. I mean, I didn't stop when I first picked up this book until I got to page 130 because I was traveling
Okay.
between the time, yeah. So it was just
Yeah.
like quick, 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 and then I was able to make it through. So, but yeah, I really enjoyed reading this.
Oh, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. So, I think I'm out of my major questions. The other questions I have will I have to spoil the book. I don't want to spoil it. I, I really want people to experience the journey because I think it's a journey.
I
Yeah,
definitely agree that. I mean, that's what I've written in a lot of people's books. If I'm actually signing it personally, I say enjoy the journey because it really is a journey.
it really is a journey.
And yeah, a few people have given some spoilers away already, and I'm like, don't do it because
Don't do that. Don't
yeah,
do that. When I started, because of how the description is,
yeah,
how baby is this and an opportunity presents itself, I kept
yeah,
waiting for the opportunity.
okay, yeah,
I think it was at the fourth chapter. I was like, okay, I don't care
yeah,
about
exactly,
how I don't
exactly.
care how she's going to end
Yeah,
up there. I'm
yeah,
going to just follow this journey. I'm
yeah,
going to follow how. But one thing that was interesting to me was when she met. Can we
Prince,
talk about Prince?
yeah,
uh, when she met Prince, I wasn't expecting that because she was doing all this gra gra of someone that was like, please, you people should move away from me. I don't have time for this. And then that happened. I was like, baby, you too,
you
even you.
too. Yeah,
I
she
was
took
like,
took
you
the win,
too.
but yeah,
But it was also interesting. Prince as a character himself is like 360. He's like fully fleshed out, and his passion with cooking and yeah, I was like, okay, this is
I think
we're
yeah. And he's representative of the future, the future of Nigeria. Exactly. He's also, very different to the father who only
mm,
sees problems and whatever it is, whereas Prince sort of sees solutions and sees. So I think he embraces life a little bit more easily. And also maybe teaches baby to be a bit more, to go with it a little bit more. So yeah, it was
mm.
yeah.
Yeah. My favorite character in the entire book was Mama Jumbo, and
Without a doubt. Yeah.
without a doubt, because I love strong women. I love
Yeah. And it's
those.
important too. She's the strong woman. She's the business woman. She's I mean, she's just a badass. She's a great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she's a representation of what you can be inside Makoko. Like she's just like, yeah, even though I'm here, you can be all of these things. You can have all of these things. Yeah. So I just every time she comes on and then she used to drop advice. I'm like, this woman knows what she's talking about. She knows what she's
And
talking about.
doing things on her own terms, which is, very forward in that sort of community. So yeah, it was fun to write Mama Jumbo.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Anyway, thank you so much for coming. I don't know if it's possible you can read like half a page for us. I can put that in the intro before
Okay.
we, yeah.
Take that down. Do you have any particular bit or just anything
I
I?
think the beginning,
Okay.
um, I'm thinking, yes, I think maybe just the first page
Okay.
of the Masobe edition. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Okay, let me mute
Ready?
myself.
Okay. There's an old tale where we live about throwing a newborn into the lagoon. If the baby drowns, it is illegitimate, and the mother must be banished from the community. But if it floats, the infant is embraced by all. They say fathers used to celebrate their child's birth with this test. It must have been a trick, though, as everybody knows that all babies float. I was born in the water. That's what Papa says, but it's a fiction. I wasn't born in a hospital or on land. Most of us in my community weren't. We drew our first breaths on adobo, though according to Papa, my first moments were almost in the lagoon itself. Makoko is what the outsiders had originally called our settlement hundreds of years ago, due to its abundance of akoko leaves, and the name stuck for the community on the Lagos coast just across from the Third Mainland Bridge. To strangers, it's a slum, a metallic and wooden eyesore built over a stinking bed of ever-mounting sewage, spreading out across the smoke-filled horizon. For the government, it's the impediment between even larger coffers for them and prime waterfront real estate. But to us who are from here, Makoko is simply home.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I wonder if there's an audio version of this book coming
There
out
is an
or
audio version in the UK, and it's voiced by Diana Yakini. So yes, it's available on Audible.
oh, okay, excellent. I'll get it and I'll add it to the
Okay.
add it to the description of the episode because I think it will make a very interesting
Yeah.
audiobook. It will make so are we expecting I know it's too early to ask because this book just came out a few days ago. But are we expecting something from you in the next 2 years, next
I
three
think so. I
years?
mean, it's not largely not to do with me. It's largely to do with publishing and publishers and all those kind of things. But yes, I'm
Yeah.
working on something at the moment, so fingers crossed.
No, that's good.
Crossed
I
it won't
understand.
take as
I
long
understand
as-
what you say about publishing. I don't know. It's like we have more books now, but
Yeah,
like less books at the same time. I don't know.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah, I enjoyed reading and talking to you. You're an excellent guest. Thank you
All
so very
right.
much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.